Namaste and good morning to all of you. Let's start our Sunday Gita class with some Gita mantras. Om Parthaye Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayan Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Puran Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritvarshinim Bhagavati Mashtadashadhyayani Am Twamanusandhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namo Astute Vyas Vishal Buddhe Full Arvind Ayat Patra Netar Yen Tavya Bharat Tail Purnaha प्रज्वलितो ज्ञान मया प्रदीपः प्रपन्न पारिजाताय तोत्र वेत्र एक पानये ज्ञान मुद्राय कृष्णाय गीता अमृत दुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोगदा गोपाल नंदना पार्थो वत्सा सुधीर भोगता दुग्धम गीता अमृतम महत् वसुदेव सुतम देवम कंस चानूर मर्दनम देवकी परमानंदम कृष्णम वंदे जगत गुरु भीष्म द्रोण तटा जयद्रथ चला गांधार नीलोत्पला शल्य ग्राहवती कृपेन वाहने कर्णेन वेला कुला अश्वत्थाम विकर्ण घोर मकरा दुर्योधन अवर्तने सो तीर ना खलु पांडवै रन नदी कवर्तका केशवा पाराशरे वत्सरोजमलम गीता अर्थ गंधोटकम नाना ख्यानक केसरम हरि कथा संबोधन अबोधितम लोके सज्जन षटपदय रह पे पिए मानम मुदा भूयाद भारत पंकजम कलिमल प्रध्वंसी न श्रेयसे मूकम करोति वाचालम पंगुम लंघ्यते गिरम यत्कृपातमं वंदे परमानंद माधवम यम ब्रह्म वरुण इंद्र रुद्र मरुतः सुनवन्ति दिव्ये स्तवे वेदे सांग पद क्रमोपनिषदे गायन्ति यम सामगा ध्यानवस्थे तद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यम योगिनो यस्यन्तं न विदुसुर असुर गणा देवाय तस्मै नमः. Okay, we are studying chapter number 4, Gyan Karam Sannyas Yoga, and we are towards the end of this chapter. And we have seen in the last couple of weeks, Lord Krishna has mentioned 12 yajna. And the purpose of these yajnas is purification of our mind. Okay? Live a life such that your mind keeps on getting purer and purer. So that's why in these yajnas, we see very ordinary things which we do, like eating, breathing, working. Whatever we do, he says, do with the bhavana of a yajna. So do not forget God. Okay? Sometimes it's the simpler things where we can remember God very easily. So we got to cultivate this habit. Then he mentioned one of the yajna, which is called Gyan Yajna. Knowledge. Gyan means knowledge. And there are two kinds of knowledge. There is a material knowledge and then there's a spiritual knowledge. So for material knowledge, sure, we have gone to the schools and the colleges, universities to get that knowledge. For spiritual knowledge, he says, go to a guru. Because for this, we need spiritual knowledge. And in the verse number 34, which we covered last week, he talked about with which attitude we should go to the guru and who is qualified to be a guru. And then in verse number 35, he says, knowing that means knowing that, having that knowledge, once you have attained that knowledge, you shall not again get deluded. Because ignorance makes us deluded. He says, once you have that knowledge, that means once you have experienced that knowledge, not just a theoretical knowledge, knowing that you shall not, O Pandav, get deluded like this again. And by that, you shall see all beings in yourself and also in me. Okay, this is a very key part of this verse. Do we see God in everybody? Do we see God everywhere? Do we see that there are temples walking all around us? Some in animal form, some in plant form, some in human form. This is what Lord Krishna is saying. This is the knowledge we need to cultivate. This is the knowledge we need to experience. Now let's start the class with verse number 36. Api chedasi papebhya sarvebhya papakritmah sarvam jnana palven eva vrijinam samtarshyasi. Api means even. Chet means if, asi means you. Papebhya, then the sinners. Sarvebhya, all. Papakritmaha, most sinful. Sarvam, all. Gyan palven, by the boat of knowledge, by the raft of knowledge. Ev means alone. Vrijinam, sin. Samtarishyasi, you shall cross over. So he's saying, even you, if you are the most sinful of all sinners, yet you shall verily cross all sins by the raft of knowledge. So Lord Krishna is promising us. He must felt a certain amount of lack of confidence in Arjuna, that I have done so many bad things, so many bad karmas, which are called sins, because those sins become the obstacles on our path. So it must have reflected on his face. So that's why Lord Krishna is telling us over here that yoga is not just a theoretical philosophy. It is practical. When you experience this knowledge, that becomes a boat for you, that becomes a raft for you to cross over this ocean, this samsara. So this scripture, this great Shastra, is a Shastra of life, written for people like us. We also sometimes wonder that we might have done so many bad things, knowingly or unknowingly, hurt somebody. But if we just keep on moving towards this light of knowledge, consciously, we'll be able to move out of this samsara, coming and going into this samsara. We'll attain the goal. So this is like a divine knowledge he's talking about. Divine knowledge provides the boat to cross over the material ocean. This samsara is the material ocean. And this divine knowledge is the boat. Katha, which we are studying on our Thursday classes, it says over there, the Lord of Death tells to Nachiketa that illumine your intellect with the divine knowledge. That's exactly what Lord Krishna is saying. So he says, illumine your intellect with divine knowledge. Then with that illumined intellect, control the unruly mind. So intellect is the boss of our mind. Mind should listen to the intellect. Then he says to cross over the material ocean and to reach the divine realm. Okay, and that's exactly what Lord Krishna is saying over here. And what is this sin? Because he says, even if ye be the most sinful among the sinfuls, sin is an act of ego. Sin is the word which makes us forgetful of our own divine nature. We start identifying with non-self. That is the sin. Okay. So when an individual acts in his own delusion, catering to his prakriti only, the matter envelopment, with the hope that he will come to have a blissful life, that's a sin. Not knowing your real nature is a sin. So he says to rediscover that ego is nothing but the lower self. And after that, living a life as the self of all, that is the true wisdom. That self is the same self in everybody. Okay. Now further he is saying in the next verse, in what manner does this wisdom destroy this forgetfulness? This is sin, because forgetting who we are is the actual sin. Yatha edhansi sammitha agni bhasmat kurute Arjuna Gyan agni sarv karmani bhasam sat kurute tatha. Yatha means as. Edhansi, fuel, like a firewood. Samidha, blazing. Agni, fire. Bhasam sat, to ashes. Kurute, turns or reduces or makes. Arjun. Gyan Agni, fire of knowledge. Sarv karmani, all actions. Bhasam sat, to ashes. Kurute, again reduces or makes. Tatha means so, similarly. As the blazing fire reduces fuel to ashes, O Arjun, so does the fire of knowledge reduce all actions to ashes. Okay, we are all familiar with how every piece of wood, no matter which color and the shape or the size we put into the fire, it just becomes ash. And once it's a ash, we don't even know how the wood piece or any other material we put in there looked like before. So that's why he says, just as fire reduces fuel to ashes. And this example is given because there used to be Yagyashalas everywhere. Yagyashala. That was a daily ritual for the Aryans. And Arjuna was familiar with it. Yagyashala. So he's taking Arjuna's mind and our mind towards the Yagyashala also, because there is a serene atmosphere and a thrilled sense of divinity there. That kind of a vibration in the Yagyashala. So it's a very striking example. And again, the quality, shape, condition, color, all the fuel pieces, when they come in contact with that blazing fire, they become homogeneous mass of ash. So he says the similarly, we have a heap of karmas attached to each of us. We have forgotten the karmas which we have done. Even in this lifetime, we forget it, what we have done. Because karmas are not only the physical karmas, the words spoken are karmas too. The thoughts creation is a karma too. Okay. So those karmas, some of them could be sinful, or even the righteous deeds also performed by us in this lifetime or infinite lifetimes before. But when we surrender to them, fire of knowledge is when we surrender to God, He burns our stockpile of endless lifetimes of karmas. That's what happens. That's a Jnana Agni, fire of knowledge. Otherwise, actions, they leave reactions. But when the actions are done as a yajna, there's no reaction left. They are burnt. But over here, Lord Krishna is telling us, even the previous actions, we often talk about the Sanchit Karma, the Prarabdha Karma, and the Kriyaman or the Agami Karma. These are the three kinds of karmas. So when we have this kind of a knowledge, experiential knowledge, Sanchit Karma, the storehouse of the karmas, because they have not yet become operative. So Lord Krishna is saying they become ashes. Agami karma also, whatever we are doing right now or we will do in the future, because we will do it as a yagya rupi, sure, no reaction of them. But what about prarabdha karma? Is he talking about the prarabdha karma also? Prarabdha karmas are the operative karmas which we have brought right now in this lifetime. The kind of a body we have, the kind of a predominant good fortune or not so good fortune, can that become to ashes? No. You are stuck with that, but with this kind of a knowledge, you'll be able to deal with it properly. You won't blame anybody else. You will accept it. You'll say, yeah, it is mine. I am going through it, but God is with me. So he is basically talking about the Sanchit Karam and the Agami or the Kriyaman Karam. So when he says all karmas, that's what it means. Because sometimes the reason I'm bringing it out like this, because sometimes we start questioning our buddhi, the intellect start questioning, I've been on this path. I have reached samadhi. And all I see is my guru reaching a samadhi too. Or the saintly people, why do they go through some difficult times? We start questioning. Okay, so prarabdha we have brought in, and that's what we have to deal with in this current life. Okay, but a yogi always remembers, God is with me, no matter difficult time or not so difficult time, God is with me. Just like a baby, no matter how high the temperature is, sitting in mother's lap, is fully comforted. That's how a bhagat is fully comforted, no matter what happens. Okay. So now let's look at verse number 38. Na hi jnanena sadrisham pavitram ihi vidyate tat swayam yog samsiddha kalen atmani vindate. No means not, he, certainly. Jnanena, divine knowledge. Because this is the knowledge we are talking about. Sadrisham, equal to. Pavitram, pure. Eh, here in this world. Vidyate exists. Tat means that knowledge. Swayam, himself. Yoga samsiddha, perfected in yoga. Kalen, in time or in course of time. Atmani, within the heart. Vindati, finds. Certainly, Lord Krishna is saying, there is no purifier in this world like divine knowledge. Okay. He who is himself perfected in yoga finds it in himself in good time or in course of time. So there's no set period of time when the right time comes. And that right time could be different for different people. It all depends. How many karmas? What kind of a practice? So there's so many factors there. So, but basically what he's saying, one who has attained purity of mind through prolonged practice of yoga receives such knowledge within himself. That is a key word to swayam, in due course of time. Okay, so it will happen. When will it happen? There's no fixed time, but it will happen. But we have to keep on practicing so that we keep on purifying our mind. So verily there exists nothing in this world more noble and sacred than the self-knowledge. Essentially, that's what he's saying. Just like a person who is drowning in a pool of water or ocean, what is most precious to that person? A life jacket. The same way he's saying, this acquisition of this knowledge of our real nature is so precious to a student of divinity. So the knowledge of the self can be attained when a person has gained in oneself a full mastery in yoga. Okay? And full mastery in yoga really means mind has to be calm also, pure also. Those are the two things. Okay, calmness of the mind, stillness of the mind, and the purity of the mind too. That is a mastery in yoga. And that's why he mentioned these 12 yagyas. Diligently, when a person practices these yagyas, will gain a complete self-mastery through them. That is the purpose of these yagyas. See, knowledge has the power to purify us, elevate us, liberate us. It has the power to unite us with God. This is what he's telling us. Okay, but this is divine knowledge. Theoretical knowledge is information. But over here, he's talking about the practical knowledge, the realization. And that's why he said this kind of a knowledge can be acquired through a guru. Theoretical knowledge, sure, we can read the scriptures. But practical knowledge, we get it at the feet of the guru. Okay. We were studying Yoga Darshan yesterday in our retreat. In the first chapter of Yoga Darshan, Rishi Patanjali says, Shrut Anuman Pragyabhyam Anya Vishya Vishesh Arthatvat. If you have this book, you can go to that. Chapter 1, verse number, Sutra number 49. So it's the same thing Rishi Patanjali is saying. That knowledge attained by realization from within through the practice of yoga is far superior to the theoretical knowledge. And that's the reason Lord Krishna has added this swam word here. Because this realization, somebody can teach us, but realization has to happen with our own effort. No matter how great the guru is, no matter which avatar it is, or Brahma himself, we have to do our own practice. Nobody can do practice for us. So that's why swayam word. Okay, so he himself will realize the truth in a good time. Kalen. So self-realization is not a magic. That guru will touch your forehead and the head and then you will get self-realized. No. If somebody claims that, my own Guruji used to say, run away from that kind of a person. It doesn't work like that. You cannot buy it. Okay. It's not a witchcraft. It's not a sorcery. It's a self-realization. So God realization is the final end of evolution, the fulfillment of existence. So again, no definite time schedule is promised for perfection to manifest. In a good time, in the right time, Kalen. So this Kalen means that it doesn't mean either immediately, nor does it promise us after trillions of lifetimes. Okay, so it can happen right away, but it can take a few lifetimes, or maybe a few years, or end of this lifetime. Okay, so Kalen, Achiren, we'll see that Achiren word in the next verse. So it gives a direct suggestion of hope as well as guidance to all the seekers of all times, that it can happen, it will happen. We should not get impatient. Sometimes we think that we've been practicing for 6 months or 6 years. Don't see any change. Keep on practicing. Okay? That's why Rishi Patanjali, he said about the practice, Nirantar, Dirag Kal, Satikar Sevita. Those are the words used by Rishi Patanjali for practice, for abhyas. Okay? So the surest means of acquiring is declared further in the next verse. It's a very powerful verse again. For us practitioners, we can fine tune our practice, our sadhana. Shraddhavan labte jnanam, tat para sanyat indriya, jnanam labdhava param shantim, achiren adhigachati. Shraddhavan, a person of faith. Labhate, achieves, obtains. Jnanam, divine knowledge. Tatpara, devoted. Sanyat indriya, who has subdued the senses, or who has learned how to control the senses. Sanyat indriya. Jnanam, knowledge. Labdhava, having obtained. Pram, supreme. Shantim, peace. Achiren, without delay. Okay. Adhigachati, attains, goes. The person who is full of faith, that is one condition, who is devoted to it, tatpara, second condition, and who has subdued the senses, the third condition. Obtained this knowledge. And having obtained this knowledge, without delay, he goes to the supreme peace. So the qualities that are necessary for an individual to be assured of the knowledge divine, because he told us where will this knowledge take us? But in order to have this knowledge, we have to have these qualities. It's almost like writing from a science textbook. Step by step, he's teaching us 3 great qualities: faith, devotion, and self-control. Most often we misunderstand these qualities, especially the faith. There have been many exploiters of the religion, making a capital out of repeating this word, faith, blind faith. Have faith in me. I'll take care of you. I'll meet you there at the end. Or I'll take you there. Those are the exploiters. Shri Krishna introduces the concept of faith in the context of knowledge. Because all spiritual truths may not be immediately perceptible. So in that sense, we need to have faith. Some of these things can be experienced after having attained sufficient elevation on this path. Like God is everywhere. Having faith in that statement, That's why the definition of a faith is Guru Vedant Vakyeshu Drid Vishwasa Shraddha. Faith means firm confidence in the words of the Guru and the scriptures. Something which I cannot see right now, I don't know right now, but believing in Guru's words and then practicing, and one day you will experience. But practice we have to do. Because if we only accept what we can presently verify or comprehend, we will be bereft of this higher spiritual secrets. So faith helps us to do the practice. So that's why Lord Krishna is clearly indicating here the urgency of giving our undivided faithfulness to the spiritual life. Because we need to progress on this path. So we got to have this Shraddha in what we are doing. Shraddha in ourselves that we can do it. Shraddha in the words of our Guru or the words of the scriptures. Without losing sight of the goal. And he mentions the goal also here. He says goal is a Param Shanti. That is the goal. And the second thing he said, subdue the senses, learn to control the senses. So it's a spirit of self-control, because it is the sense organs which really seduce us away into the life of excessive sensuousness. And whenever we are living a life of sensuousness, there are troubles. It's almost like a troubled waters in the ocean. What happens with those currents? So it is imperative that a seeker should learn to live in a steady and constant self-control. Are my senses in my control? See, Hatha Yoga teaches us that. When I'm working with my neck, is my rest of the body in my control or not? When I'm telling my eyes to look a certain way, can they do that or not? Sense control. So first we do it an hour a day, then we take that into our other hours also. While working in this world, whether we are cooking, cleaning, teaching, learning, doing anything, sense control. But doubt arises as to why we should acquire the knowledge, this divine knowledge. And this is what Lord Krishna is telling us. It will give you a supreme peace. We all want supreme peace. Sometimes we think that we want happiness. No. Happiness is just on the way. The real thing we need is Param Shanti. This is the goal of our life. It's very well known that every living creature, not just only human beings, not only the practitioners of yoga, every human being, from breathing, eating, or whatever we are doing all of it for Param Shanti. The imports of all the Vedic knowledge is revealed within the hearts of those who engage with faith, with devotion, and with self-control. So these are the three things we got to keep in mind. No action is possible without these three. Okay? And that's why it's said the absolute joy is absolute peace. And we want to move towards that absolute peace. And now in the next verse, Lord Krishna is telling us, don't doubt this. He's telling us what happens to the doubters. Agyacha, ashradhancha, sanshay atma vinashyati. See, in the previous verses, he's saying shraddhavan labate jnanam. Over here, he says sanshay atma vinashyati. Na ayam loka asti, na para na sukham sanshay atmana. Agya. See, gya means knowledge, agya means the ignorant. Who doesn't have the knowledge? Agya. Cha means and, ashradhan, the faithless, the skeptical. Cha means and, sanshayatma, the doubting self. So this atma doesn't mean soul here. It means really the mind or the intellect. Sanshay. Who does the sanshay? Buddhi does. Vinashyati, goes to destruction. Na ayam, not this, lokaha, world, asti is, na para, not the next, na sukham, no happiness, sanshay atmana, for the doubting self. The ignorant, the faithless, the doubting self goes to destruction. There is neither this world nor the other, nor happiness for the doubter. So that's how important this faith is. So again, in the previous verse, it was said that those who have faith and the knowledge would soon reach the supreme peace. Okay. So in order to just really hammer this truth in our minds, Krishna is emphasizing through a negative declaration over here. And he has used this technique throughout Bhagavad Gita actually. If you do this, you will get this. If you don't do this, this will happen to you. So that we know it fully. So who have not these qualities cultivated, gained or developed in themselves, will not get happiness here or hereafter. So almost like a complete ruined life, destroyed life. Because we know that it's not possible to start on this path without at least understanding it intellectually. Even though we don't know yet, we have not experienced it, but intellectually we got to have some firmness there. So when there's a doubt in the intellect, that means there's no firmness there. So that's what he says, that do not doubt it. We are all practitioners, students, sadhaks. But still there is a difference. The scriptures, they say the highest practitioner is the one who possesses knowledge of the scriptures and is also endowed with firm faith. So that means the theoretical knowledge is there and the firm faith is there too. And the middle class practitioner or the sadhak is one who does not have the knowledge of the scriptures, but has faith in the God and the Guru. That's a middle class, Madhyam Shreni. And lowest class, Adham, is one who neither has a scriptural knowledge and nor is endowed with faith. So that means we got to have a faith also and the knowledge also, if we want to evolve further fast. See, even the worldly activities require the exercise of faith. If we are in a restaurant ordering food, We must have faith that what they'll give it to us is clean, good quality, eatable. If you don't have that faith, it will not work. So over here, we are talking about something much more profound, not just the physical. So that's why Lord Krishna is condemning such a person who has doubts. And he is also pointing out the tragedy for this kind of a person. Basically, what he is saying, that such person are psychologically incapable of enjoying any situation. Doubting tendency in them will poison all their experiences. When we go to a doctor, we have faith in the doctor. To enhance our faith, they even they frame their certificates from their medical school and put it in the waiting room. When we fly in a plane, we have faith in the pilots who are flying. So this faith is needed no matter what we do. Even when we go to our hairstylist, we have faith. That person won't cut our ears. Faith. But over here, faith in the Guru and the scriptures. Very, very important. We have two more verses of this chapter. Let me just go through it rather quickly. It's the same theme. So, but we'll end the class with the bhajan. Yog sanyast karmanam gyan samchinna sanshaya atam vantam na karmani nibadanti dhananjaya. Yog sanyast karmanam. One who has renounced actions by yoga. So all the karmas dedicating at the bodily level, mental level, verbal level to God. That's what it really means. Yoga sanyast karmanam. Jnana samachena sanshayam. Doubts are also removed by the knowledge. More and more knowledge, the doubts go away. Knowledge is like a light. In that light we can see and doubts go away. Atamavantam, situated in self, poised in self. Na karmani, no actions. Ni badanti, bind. Dhananjaya, that is Arjuna. He who has renounced actions by yoga, whose doubts are, they have been removed by knowledge, who is poised in the self as the self, actions do not bind him. O Dhananjaya. It's a beautiful summary of all the main secrets of life, which has explained at length in this chapter. So through the practice of Karam Yog, see two things. Practice of Karam Yog, we have learned to renounce our attachments to the fruits of the actions. That's a Karam Yog. If we are still attached to the fruits, we are not a Karam Yogi. We can call ourselves a Karmi, but not Karam Yogi. So through the practice of Karam Yog, we have learned to renounce our attachment to the fruits of actions. But next thing he is telling us that every doubt in us regarding the goal of life has been completely removed in our own inner experience. And we have found the divinity in ourselves. So this is a result of the above two. And what happens with the result? Ego comes to rediscover itself to be nothing other than the Atma. That little I understands that I am the Atma. I am not the body. I'm not the karmas which I'm doing. I'm not what people are calling me. Or what I have achieved. Atmavantam. So then the individual ego comes to live poised in the self as the self. When such an individual works, his actions can never bind him. Never bind him. Because we know that only those actions bind us which are performed with a self-interest. I am doing it. But when we do the actions with a sense of detachment and the right knowledge, there's no binding. It's almost like a mathematically, when you multiply anything with a zero, is what? A zero. We all know that, basic math. If you multiply 0 with a 10, it's a 0. If you multiply 1,000 with a 0, still it's a 0. So all the work enlightened people do, they are doing it, but they are doing it for God. They have just surrendered everything to God. No self-interest at all. So these enlightened souls perform in the world and they do not get bound because they have offered everything to God. In the fire of yoga. Because they are doing it for the pleasure of God. Is my God happy or not? That's all. That is the only thing in their mind. And the last verse is like a very wonderful result, supreme profit these yogis, they get from this true knowledge. And Lord Krishna is advising us, the smart. Because of all of that, whatever he said, the smart, therefore. Agyan sambhutam hritastham gyan asina atmana chitva enam sanshyam yogam atishta utishta bharat. Remember, all this is being said in the war zone. So that's why sometimes we see the terminology also pertaining to that particular situation. Tasmat, therefore, agyan sambhutam, born out of ignorance. Harit satam, situated, residing in the heart. Harit. Gyan asina, the sword of knowledge. Atmana, of the self. Chitva, having cut. Enam, this. Sanshyam, doubt. Yogam, yoga. And over here, this yoga really means the Karam Yog. With the help of this knowledge. Atishta, take refuge, take shelter. Utishta, arise. Bharat Arjuna. Therefore, with the sword of knowledge, remove the doubts of the self. Born of ignorance, residing in your heart, take refuge in yoga, arise, O Bharat. So he's encouraging him to get up, do what you're supposed to do with this knowledge. So this is a concluding verse of this chapter. And he is giving a very clear advice to us also through Arjuna, that with the sword of knowledge, this divine knowledge is like a sword. And what are we supposed to cut? Cut the bonds of ignorance. Cut this agyan out. And what is the agyan? Agyan is not knowing who you are. Wasting time only in the material things when the goal is spiritual. So he says, cleave asunder this doubt of the self lying in the heart. Some intellectuals might say that doubt must come from the intellect. Why is he saying the heart? Heart doesn't have the doubt. This use of the word heart does not imply the physical heart. Okay? The Vedas state that our physical brain resides in the head. But the subtle mind resides in the region of the heart. And what is this subtle mind? That is the reason why in love and hatred we experience the pain in the heart. So it's not a physical thing. So in this sense, the heart is the source of compassion. Heart is the source of love, sympathy, and all the good emotions. Okay, so an intellect functioning from and through an atmosphere of a sympathetic love, kindness, charity, these noble qualities can be considered the science of philosophy. And we say it's coming from the heart. Okay, sometimes these words are used. It's like not a physical body. We're talking about philosophical truth over here. So he says that these doubts can be completely annihilated only when the individual gains an intimate, subjective experience of the self in them. Okay, so this chapter concludes with a spirited call to Arjuna. Lord Krishna says, arise, because you remember Arjuna was sitting down. His bow and arrow on the side. And Lord Krishna says, arise, Uttishta. And it is a call to all of us also to get up, act well in the spirit of yajna. Don't be lazy. Laziness is tamasic. Gain more and more inner purity. We are here to clean ourselves. That's the reason we have come over here, to clean ourselves, clean our mind, clean our intellect, clean our ego through meditation, through Shraddha, through sense control. Okay, so he says, gain the supreme peace, which is the final fulfillment of evolution. Okay, so this is the end of this chapter. Next week we'll start with chapter 5, Karam Yog. Om Purnamada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnase Purnamadai Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much.